Chris Cargill on the line.
Cargill. Yeah, that's right. You know, he is the Eastern Washington director of the Washington Policy Center, and he's on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Hi,
well.
Chris.
Yeah.
Mr. Councilman, how are you?
Well, we're hearing about this long-term care insurance, and everyone has to have it. The clock ticking on this new government program. Well, boy, tell us about it. We're all going to pay for it, right?
Well, that's certainly true. I mean, the rules of the new law are still being drafted by the Washington State Employment Security Department. They're the ones, don't forget, that got scammed out of millions of dollars in Nigerian unemployment insurance fraud. So they have a really good track record, as you might know. Nevertheless, the new program is called the Washington Cares Fund. It's a requirement that everyone in the state have long-term care insurance, and that might seem like a noble goal, but starting in 2022, so in January, you're going to be taxed 58 cents for every $100 of income that you make. So if you're making $50,000 a year, you're going to pay about $300. If you're making $100,000, you're going to pay close to $600, and so on. This is going to come directly out of your paycheck in the form of a payroll tax. There is no income cap, so as much as you make is how much is going to be taxed. And this is on top of all the other state and federal taxes that you already pay. And this new state program is going to provide what really is bad coverage if you compare it to other insurance plans. The lifetime benefit is only $36,500, and you must have advanced disabilities before you get any dollar from that, any payments. As many people know, the private plans that you can get are really much more generous than that and cost a lot less. It's also worth noting there's a concern about people who live out of state and are forced to pay this plan, those who are soon to be retirees and will be taxed but unable to vest or see any program benefit, and then many of those who perhaps pay this tax their whole working life, decide to retire in Oregon or Idaho or wherever, and then receive nothing.
Yeah, wow. Oh, geez. I'm just speechless. So who is this for then? I mean, so we're all basically going to be funding long-term care for a bunch of hurting people. I mean,
technically it's supposed to be for everyone, but there's a lot of questions that, of course, everyone has, and the rules are still being created. I mean, the legislature set a November 1st deadline if you don't want to participate, so you can opt out.
Right.
And doing so, of course, would allow you to avoid that coming payroll tax. That's going to start biting your paycheck in January. But the state says it's going to go on a full PR campaign to try to convince you to stay. They want to build what they call, quote, an affinity for the fund. And there are major questions about whether this entire thing is sustainable. In fact, there have been state actuaries who have said the program is already going to face a $15 billion shortfall. And at least one state senator has said the solution might just be to not allow some people to get the benefits. So you have to pay the tax, but you wouldn't necessarily qualify for the benefits, again, unless you opted out.
So if I go out and buy private insurance, I can opt out. No.
Yes, but you have to do it by November 1st, and there's some paperwork you have to submit.
But you think it would be cheaper?
Oh, I think it would be cheaper and it would be a much better plan, and it covers you in case. I mean, if you think you're going to live in Washington State for the rest of your life, then maybe this is okay. But even if you are, this is not very good coverage. $36,500 if you need long-term care is not going to last you very long.
Yeah, about 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, exactly. If that.
So here's the question: is this virtue signaling by a woke legislature? Is this an attempt to reward big insurance by forcing people to consider them as an option? How would you, in your honest, most cynical manner, characterize this?
Well, I think what it is I think there's probably two things that this could potentially be. I think it's one, the legislature thinking that, and I'm speaking the legislature as a whole, so the majorities, thinking that they have a responsibility to make sure that everything you could possibly need or want is covered by the state. I think that's one part of the equation. I think the other part of the equation is some in the legislature just thinking, you know what, let's just create another program here, because once we create it, it'll be really difficult to get rid of it, and so we can figure out the tax equation later.
Wow.
And that is a little bit scary because, as you know, the legislature is doing just fine, and Olympia is doing just fine on state tax revenue. But anytime you create a massive new bureaucracy like this and program, it's going to be upside down quite quickly. And then what's going to happen? The legislature is going to come back and say, "Oh, we didn't realize that this is in such bad shape. Okay, we need another tax increase." And that's what's likely to happen.
Well, as I was explaining things to my daughter over the weekend, we had a long and involved political conversation, and I was telling her that on the left, which is what the majority and the controlling vote is in Olympia, is true believers. There are true believers that I think don't consider all the details. They don't consider unintended consequences. I think that we'll take care of all of your needs. All right. Give me a look at just how far 36 grand gets you. All right. So I think there are true believers, as I told Kate, and then I think there are deceivers. I think there are people that have an agenda above and beyond, but they say the same things as the true believers. It sounds the same, but it's for a different purpose. Both can be dangerous because one is of personal intent, and the other is a do-gooder gone sideways. So to me, that's how I look at this. I may be wrong, but I feel that, as you said, there are people out there that really want to make sure that everybody's got something, because that's our job as legislators. But 36 grand and all of those restrictions are ridiculous. And I guess the idea is that will create, by the nature of the restrictions, will create the pool that fewer people will be using, and thus it'll become more sustainable than it might otherwise be. Is that reasonable?
Oh, I think that's exactly right, and I think there's a real question about whether. I mean, look, this is a product that is provided, and quite well, by the private sector. And so why does the government need to be involved in competing or having another product to compete essentially with the private plans? Wouldn't it be better to offer incentives for people to go out and purchase long-term care, which is easy to do? I mean, you could. There's a whole host of ways you could try to set up an incentives-based program, but instead, Olympia doesn't seem to like incentives. Olympia just seems to like either the hammer or this is the way we're going to do it, and we are going to run it, and that can lead to big problems. There's
the carrot and the stick, and then there's Olympia, the stick and the bigger stick.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
So Chris, did I misunderstand you? So if you already have long-term care, you're still going to have to pay this tax?
Unless you opt out.
Yeah. Unless you opt out. Okay.
By November.
Yeah, you're going to have to file the paperwork to opt out.
Okay. All right. Did everyone hear that? Because I know there's a lot of people listening that may have long-term care and don't want to pay this tax. So you've got till November. All right.
Yeah, the state is banking on you not knowing that and not opting out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the more people that opt out, the less money they have for the program. The state is really, really hoping that you're not aware that you can opt out. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised once all is said and done and ESD sets this whole thing up, if it's like trying to pull out your hair and pull teeth to actually opt out. I think they're going to try to make it as difficult as possible.
Well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it a good try. So I will report on the progress of that. Definitely.
There you go.
Right on. Okay. Hey, thanks for the call this morning. Appreciate it, Chris. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thanks,
always
guys.
Good to talk to you. Appreciate it.